I think the team's in a good spot, man. I think that, every day we've gotten a little bit better, whether that's learning from our mistakes that we made in practice or whether that's, bringing the right energy, coming with the right focus every day. But I'll tell you one thing, it flew by fast, and I think that's going to be a summary of how the season goes. Before you know it, we're going to be on the road playing. But I think everybody came with the right mindset. Our team is really locked in, really, ready to make that push this year. And I think that's one of the main things that I see. And I think it's just going to be great things, as long as we continue to come like that and have that same energy, and we keep getting deeper and deeper in the season, I think we're going to be good.
Jamahl Mosley used only one word to describe the first 5 days of training camp, and it's what we talked about at the top here, competition. How that competition manifests itself with that crowded guard room, plus how the Magic are taking personal gains to the entire team. And yes, we hear the doubters, and we're going to address them on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 8th, 2023. Posting this in the afternoon on Sunday, so don't worry, you're not late or anything. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the first 5 days of training camp are in the books. The Orlando Magic taking Sunday off. Hopefully enjoying a little football, hopefully resting their bodies, getting ready for that first preseason game on Tuesday. Very, very exciting. We're going to learn more about that game on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But before we do that, any of that, but before we get to that, on today's show, competition is the word of the day, word of the week for the Orlando Magic. We'll talk specifically what that competition looks like in the Magic's crowded guard room. Plus, we're going to talk about the balance and the difficulty of taking personal gains and bringing them to the team. We'll also address the doubters out there. We see you. We'll talk about them and why they're not so off base, but why they're wrong. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Like I said at the top of the show, and like you heard from I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick Markel. I haven't picked my sound bites yet when I record this, but like you heard at the top of the show, competition has been at the center of this training camp. Jeff Weltman said it. Jamahl Mosley has said it repeatedly. The Magic, now with a fully healthy roster, feel like they have the depth to compete internally. They feel like they have a team that is capable of battling each other, of iron sharpening iron, all that stuff. And as Jeff Weltman said repeatedly during this summer, we are at a point where minutes are not going to be handed to anybody. Anthony Black and Jett Howard, there is no guarantee that the rookies will be on the court this year or will be on the court consistently this year. They'll get their chance. I'm very convinced. We've covered enough NBA seasons, not just with the Magic recently. We've covered enough NBA seasons to know every player on the roster is going to be called on at some point. So depth is good. Cole Anthony will say this later. It's never bad to have more talent. Depth is good. I'm not going to complain about depth. I'm not going to complain that the Magic do have all these options. It's a good thing. And so it remains one of the big themes about this season particularly is this internal competition. And there's no better place to look at it and how it's making everybody better than with the guard group. most analysts of the NBA wondered why the Magic took Anthony Black. And the answer, and people ask me that all the time too. And I'll give them the frank answer of, well, when you're drafting sixth in the draft, you take the best player available and you figure the rest out later. The Magic certainly have some questions at guard with Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony set to become free agents. Anthony Black, for his part, has all the physical attributes and skills the Magic typically look for. Let's not pretend otherwise. The Magic like length. They like size at the guard spot. They're going to take length and size at the guard spot. Like that's just going to happen. And so, that's not surprising. Like that's not a big deal. But yes, it did crowd the guard room. We don't see a clear path for Anthony Black to play. I have him playing some minutes at the 3 just to get him in there. It is not a slam dunk pick. I don't think there was a slam dunk pick. I think there'd be issues with everyone. It wasn't like a clear-cut guy the Magic should take. And excuse me, Anthony Black's talent level is just so high. He's a really good player. And we're going to see that play out. There's definitely been some good signs from what I've seen, what little I've seen of camp, that his shot is going to cover, I don't think it'll ever be fantastic, but it's going to be decent. It'll be decent. It'll be better than I think people expect. But we'll see how it works in games. Like that's ultimately what matters is how it works in games. But this guard competition is a very real thing. Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz, Anthony Black, to some extent, Jet Howard, to some extent, certainly Gary Harris, they're all fighting to get to the top of the pile. And it is a true competition. Jamahl Mosley said it Saturday, that it is a competition for playing time, for minutes, for role. It is a real competition. And that is what the Magic want to see throughout their roster this camp. There are a lot of things still to sort out. There are a lot of things still to figure out for this team. Let's not beat around the bush there. Nothing is set in stone for the Orlando Magic this year. Besides Paolo and Franz and probably Wendell, the Magic want everyone competing. They want high energy practices. And so what does that look like? That's kind of the big thing. Like, what does all this look like? And what seems to stand out about the Magic's guard room is not just that they're competitive, because they are competitive and they are competing against each other. We heard the story from David Steele on the Orlando Magic Pod Squad that on the first day of practice, Jalen Suggs just hounded Anthony Black to the point where he couldn't bring the ball up, and Mosley had to stop practice and say, hey, somebody come help him out. Like, if there's a player generating the most buzz at camp, at least among fans, maybe it's probably Jalen Suggs. Again, we'll see what it looks like on Tuesday. But what does this look like? Well, it looks like that heavy competition, but it looks like a lot of support for each other too, quite honestly.
I think the main thing you said, we have a lot of guards, not just one position. I think we're all interchangeable, and I think we all can learn from each other. So I think that the main thing is just, competing while we're out there on the floor, but also supporting each other while we're not. When the next guy's in, you cheer him on, you try to learn from his mistakes, learn from things he's doing well, and then when you're going against him, compete. That's what it's about. This league's about competing and making the best out of it. But I think we all have each other's back. I think we all want to see each other succeed. So I think that's one of the unique things about us. We have a lot of guys that can do multiple things and do the same thing. So, again, like we said, I know that we're competing when we're out there, but we also support each other.
I think we're all very, very talented. And, I think we're all different players, but we all have a very similar goal, and that's to help this team win and be better. And so I think that, I don't think ever having too much talent is a bad thing. I think it just, as it's been in practice, it's just allowed us to get better at a more rapid pace, and it's made the practice super competitive when we get to go against each other every day. I love getting to play against Markelle, AB, and Jalen.
And, that's just such a hallmark of this team, that they support each other. we talked about it earlier, we talked about it last week in the early parts of training camp. What does accountability look like? How does this team define we are holding each other accountable? And a lot of it said an understanding that, hey, we all love each other. We're all here to make each other better. I'm not going to hurt your feelings by telling you what's up, by keeping you on task, by saying, hey, we need you to do this. We need you to pick up your intensity. We need you to lock in here. That stuff isn't going to hurt their feelings because those relationships are built. And that seems to be part of this guard group. That, you know, that's a good story that I have is Saturday. They let us in, and again, practices, they're not letting us watch scrimmages. We're kind of coming in the last 10 minutes or so and watching them do shooting drills. But the guard group, Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, and I believe Brandon Williams was with them as well. We're doing this drill, essentially a defensive reading drill. They run a fake pick and roll with Brett Brielmeyer. They get down in the middle of the lane, and they have a coach kind of guarding the middle of the paint to keep them from just going for the layup. And then they have a coach on the wing who essentially chooses between guarding the corner or the wing. And the guard with the ball has to make the decision, has to read that coach and make the decision to pass to the open man in the corner or the open man on the wing, and then they both get the ball and take shots. That's not a necessarily competitive drill. They're not going directly against each other. But what really stood out to me was, I think it was Markelle Fultz was doing the drill. And Fultz finds Jalen Suggs in the corner. Suggs misses a three. And as they come back to the other side, and of course the competition is that they have to make 8 as a group and do it as quickly as possible so they can get more work done. As they come together on the other side of the court, getting ready for the next stage of the drill, they hug. Just, you know, the kind of like hug that we see these Magic players make, especially Markelle and Jalen. These guys like to hug. We all need a hug sometimes. There is a lot of love in this room. And that was something Jalen Suggs mentioned earlier this week too, that this is a very tight-knit group. This is a very close group. They're very welcoming. They seem to relish competition. They seem to relish competing against each other, but there are no hard feelings for what happens between the lines. Between the lines, it's work. And when they're not on the lines, they are cheering each other on. That is part of the Magic's culture. And so, yes, there is this huge competition for minutes at the guard spot. There's this huge competition for this team to be better. But there's still room to help each other too. And, you know, again, we will see how it all sorts out. Tuesday is not going to be definitive. I will repeat that warning Tuesday. Tuesday will not be definitive. It's not. But we're going to learn a lot. And we'll see how it all develops during the preseason. One of the things with young teams is young teams get better. It's proven science. So how do the Magic take these personal gains, showcase them on the court, but still help the team? Well, that is one of the questions for training camp. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word for our friends over at Gametime. Look, we all have needed last-minute tickets, whether you're going to last night's Orlando City game, whether you're looking ahead to Orlando City's big playoff game. They'll be in the first round. They're going to have home field advantage. They've clinched a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. Second best team in MLS. Guys, Orlando City is special. If you're not jumping on the purple bandwagon now, you're missing out on good times because this is a fun group. You shouldn't have to worry, though, when you're buying tickets to that event or any event happening here in Central Florida. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've used Gametime before to go see the Tampa Bay Rays, and while usually Rays tickets are not difficult to find, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, they're playing the Dodgers, went to Gametime, got tickets right behind home plate. It looked exactly like what it looked like on the app. And I even had some problems with the MLB app, and Gametime fixed my problems for me. I cannot recommend Gametime enough. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Again, remember, October 25th. We're coming up 3 weeks till opening night. Make sure you have your tickets for Magic Rockets on October 25th. You can find exclusive deals and sponsored deals on tickets for every sport, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA. Locked On NBA. That's, one word, but Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We have been through a lot here as Orlando Magic fans. The last decade has been rough. And I will often tell people, Rob Hennigan's problem was not evaluating talent. Like, yes, the Magic never got the star. And you can argue they missed on a Zach LaVine or they missed on a Devin Booker and all that. That's fine. The Magic never got a bona fide star. But they had a lot of really good players. Victor Oladipo became an all-star. Aaron Gordon was a key piece to the Denver Nuggets winning the championship. Tobias Harris has had a long and successful career. A borderline all-star that 1 year with the LA Clippers, but certainly a key contributor to a potential championship team in Philadelphia. Maybe Sixers fans will say like he's the reason they're not winning it. I don't know. But there has been talent on this roster. That is always been my takeaway. And the problem is trying to get that talent to fit together. Where Rob Hennigan failed during this rebuild was not working hard enough to build a culture and to build kind of an identity for his roster. He had all these great puzzle pieces, but they didn't fit together. And look, Jeff Weltman got it right with the coach. Jamahl Mosley's fantastic coach, been perfect for this part of the rebuild at the very least, and we're eager to see how he grows and evolves this season, especially as the team gets ready for as the team gets ready for the for a playoff push. We're eager to see how he evolves, but yes, getting Paolo Banchero really fixed things, and Franz Wagner makes things look better, but this roster does feel like it has a lot of really good fits. That it all, it feels like there are ways for this team to piece together. I always think back though to I think it was Victor Oladipo on the Woj pod shortly after his first season with Oklahoma City, and he said, in Orlando, we were all fighting for attention. They're all young. It was all a bunch of puppies. You see those puppies and you come to like the end of their enclosure and they all come running up and they're all like climbing over each other to get your love, to get your attention. That's what kind of happens with young teams. Everybody's trying to get theirs. Everyone's looking to that first contract. Everybody is looking to build, to build on themselves. They're not always as invested in the team because they got their own individual goals. And it's a Nashian equilibrium of sorts that what's good for the group is good for the individual. What's good for what's good for the whole is what, so you sacrifice a little of yourself, and not only is the whole going to be better, but the individual is going to be better. If you've seen A Beautiful Mind, the analogy they use for Nashian equilibrium is actually like a perfect analogy for it. That's your economics lesson for the day. So how does the Magic, with such a young team and such a promising team, figure out a way to make those individual gains benefit the team? That's like the central question, because we expect everyone to get better. We're going to talk about this here in a minute, but Jalen Suggs should be better. Cole Anthony should be better. Franz Wagner should be better. Paolo Banchero should be better. Wendell Carter should be better. All of these players should be better and better and better and better and better and better. But how do they make sure that individual growth matches what they're trying to accomplish as a team? And that is something that the coaching staff obviously has to wrestle with. That is something the players have to wrestle with as well.
It's definitely a balance with it. You want to make sure, you go into the offseason, you always want to get better. You want to improve on your skills, but at the same time, you want to make sure those skills are for the team. You know what I'm saying? It's a time and place for everything, and that's what makes the NBA so exciting, in my opinion. You find what you're good at, you get really good at it, and you just continue to do it over and over again.
To that point, credit does have to be given to Jamahl Mosley. He spent a lot of his summer going around meeting with players. The thing that he always says is as a coach, you have to meet the players where they are. As a coach, you have to kind of talk at the players' level, talk to them directly like that. And so that is part of this equation, that the Magic went around, mostly, especially with Paolo Banchero, a little bit with Team USA, went to Abu Dhabi and watched Franz and spoke to Franz. Like, he did a world tour. Like, he did his work. Coaching is not sitting in the office waiting for things to happen during the offseason. Part of his work for this season is going around, seeing what guys are working on, seeing how they've improved, and integrating that into the team. The other part of it, too, is setting a good offseason plan, saying like, hey, these are the things we want you to work on this year. For Markelle Fultz, it might be, hey, we want you to be a better shooter. For Wendell Carter, it might be, we want you to be a more consistent shooter as well. A lot of getting better at shooting for the Orlando Magic. But getting better as individuals has to still be directed toward helping the team get better, too. Jalen Suggs talking the big area that he wants to be better at this year is his decision-making and his maturity on the ball. And that is certainly a way for his role to expand, but it's also within the role that he played last year. The biggest problems that he had were turnovers, charges, bad decision-making at the rim, bad shooting at the rim. If he fixes and reins in a lot of that, all of a sudden he's a better player, more valuable player, and the team is better for it too. That's the big thing. And so individual growth, yes, individual players should get better. They should add skills. They should, find ways to test it out. And preseason and training camp is a great way to test things out as long as it's within the team construct. You have pickup games to kind of test things out. And, I don't know much about the preseason pickup games, but pickup runs. But I imagine coaches are watching and are able to kind of glean some things and say like, okay, that's interesting. Let me see if I can work that into my system, into my group. What I think really stands out, though, about this Magic team and the way the Magic approach this offseason is, yes, there is unparalleled energy within that building. There is a ton of optimism within that building about what this team can accomplish. They really believe in what they're about to do. And honestly, that's the key to the whole thing. Like, honestly, that's the part that matters. This team believes. They are bought into what Coach Mosley has been selling. They are bought in to what they are capable of doing. And that unlocks everything. Why are personal improvements geared toward the team? Because the individuals believe in what the team is doing. And the team believes in what the individuals are capable of. That is at the heart of this Magic team and why so many people think they're going to take a big step forward. Unfortunately, there are a few people that do not think the Magic are going to take a step forward. We're going to address the doubters out there coming up in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word for our friends over at Jase Medical. Look, we're in the middle of hurricane season. We're coming off the peak. I think I saw the Orlando Sentinel report there is a tropical depression on the way. You need to be prepared in case of an emergency. And that's why Jase case is something that you need. Is something that everyone needs. With storms, shortages, pandemics, reliance on China, and supply chain issues, we need to be prepared now more than ever with important antibiotics and medication in an emergency. Jase Medical is simple. You go online, fill out a form, and then you get a prescription, life-saving medications right to your door. Jase case gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's Jase Medical, Jase Medical.com. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping you have access to medication in emergency. It is in your hand. Again, get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase Medical.com. You walk into the Advent Health Training Center right now, the energy is unreal. Like I will keep saying this. Like, I have not been in that building with this much energy, enthusiasm, and excitement probably since I started covering the team full time. I've been covering the team regularly. I've been covering the team in some capacity my entire life, but I've been covering the team as media for this team since the 2010 season, going to games since the 2011 season. So I missed the tail end of I was at the tail end of the Dwight years. There has not been energy like this. I can't describe it. There is, again, like I said, a lot of belief, a lot of eagerness, a lot of confidence. There's a willingness to work. It feels like all the elements of a special season are there just from the vibes. Now we'll see what it looks like on the court. There was good energy when the Magic brought in Serge Ibaka and Bismack Biyombo. It did not feel like this, but people were optimistic. That was the first time that group talked playoffs pretty openly. Obviously that didn't work. Maybe they were, that it didn't work. I'm not gonna both sides that was just terrible. There's a lot of optimism, and the Magic, I wouldn't say they are a trendy pick to make the playoffs, but you're starting to see some national media say like, hey, keep an eye on the Magic. Ramona Shelburne picked them to make the playoffs on NBA Today earlier this week. Chris Mannix on a podcast a couple weeks ago now said, the Magic are a candidate to be this year's version of the Sacramento Kings. There are a lot of people who believe the Magic are building something really interesting and really special among national media. There are some people, though, who are doubting. And I want to highlight 2 of these and give their arguments some credence because, like I said, we don't know anything until they hit the floor. The Magic last year won 34 games. It feels because of their youth that it is very, very possible that they're going to take a step up. I find it, I have my win range is pretty much 36. I have them at 38 to 40, 42, 44 wins, somewhere in that range. I think this is going to be a roughly 500 team. And some of you might say that's not a real strong prediction, or that's not great. It's like, no, that's good. That's where they need to be. They need to be a 500 team. Let's get there first. Then we take the next step. And who knows? Maybe we skip that step. Who knows? But there were 2 pretty high profile articles that came out doubting the Magic. And I want to address them both kind of in kind. The first one I want to address is the ESPN thing. ESPN did like statistical models to predict the win totals, and they just did kind of 1,000 simulations and averaged them. The Magic came out at 36.5 wins, which is right on their over-under number. They're over-under on most. They're over-under on FanDuel, I believe, is 36.5. So they are, and I think that's pretty consistent across all the bookmakers. 36.5. I am pretty confident they're going to hit the over on that, but I'm not going to say it's impossible that they don't, or that they hit that number exactly. A lot of the 36.5 wins puts them at 13th in the East. The Hornets are ahead of them, and I'm a big proponent of hey, don't sleep on the Hornets. They've been good when they're healthy. Steve Clifford. The Hornets are going to surprise some people this year, I think, and then we'll see what injuries happen. But But that's kind of the deal, though. That the way ESPN described it, and if you read the blurb, they said the Magic really were impressive last year, finishing 29-28 over the last 57 games. I think they went back to December 1st, which December 5th, Kobe Price and I debated this. He says the season starts December 5th. I take out that Milwaukee loss, say December 7th, but that December 5th game against the Bucks was when things really started to turn around last year. They noted that and said, our model takes historical data into account. The Magic just don't have a lot of historical data to go off of. So they're weighed down by some of their past, by some of their older players playing on bad teams and being, and not kind of having the full benefit of years on years of success. So I saw that. And again, whenever you see these things, understand the context of them. This was not an opinion. This was a machine spitting out a number. And yes, the Magic have not had a great recent history. So if you're building a 2 or 3 year model based on 2 or 3 years of data, Paolo Banchero's only got 1 year of data on him. And not only that, and the Ultimate NBA preview is coming out soon. You'll hear this debate between me and a couple people on that podcast. But I'll be the first to say rookies are terrible. The Magic's worst lineups last year typically had Paolo Banchero in them. That's not going to be the case this year. High usage rookies make a lot of mistakes. They don't help their teams win. High usage second players, if they're on the trajectory we want them to be, start doing that. And again, that's what we're expecting this year. So when it comes to like a machine spitting out a number, the Magic aren't going to grade well because they don't have data. There's no data to back them up. And so that I wasn't so surprised by. And so I think it's important to remember that context. I was a little surprised that John Hollinger of The Athletic had the Magic as one of his teams that are going to underperform. And he does use those Vegas, the bookmakers over-unders to kind of flush that out. And he took the Magic under 36.5, which I find frankly ludicrous. I can get liking the Raptors and thinking the Raptors are going to be better than a lot of people think. The Raptors also have an over-under of 36.5 on FanDuel, if I'm not mistaken. The Magic and the Raptors are kind of in the same grouping of teams. And I can understand betting on veterans. Pascal Siakam's a really good player. They lost Fred VanVleet, but they bring in Dennis Schroeder. They got OG Anunoby. They got a full season of Jakob Poeltl coming up after getting him at the trade deadline, really helping save their season in a lot of ways. Scotty Barnes will hopefully have a bounce back from a lackluster sophomore season. There are reasons to believe in the Raptors. So I'm not going to sit here and kind of criticize that pick, but I think he gives a benefit of the doubt to their veterans that you should also kind of give to young teams, especially young teams that kind of prove themselves a little bit. Now, I'm not sitting here saying the Magic are going to win 50 games this year because they're young. Because they're young, I expect them to have ups and downs, and I expect them to be 500. That this is a team still learning how to win. But I think it's silly not to expect growth. We saw what this team could do when they're healthy. Even with a terrible offense. Like his big argument is, where are the Magic going to get shooting? How are the Magic going to spread the floor? How are the Magic going to score? And it's just like, yeah, that's a fair question, but that's a fair question to ask why they won't make the playoffs proper or won't be in the 7-8 game. That's not a proper question to say, why are they not going to win 36.5 games? If this Magic team won 34 games last year after a 5-20 start, let's even say they struggle a little bit. This is still a 38-39 win team. They're 29-28 over the last 57 games. That's a 500 team. And honestly, I think the baseline expectation for this Magic team is to be about 500. I'm willing to give some allowances. Like I said, I have them in the 38 to 44 range. I'm probably going to settle in at 40 wins as my official prediction. That is not my official prediction yet, but that's kind of where I'm settling at. So, even me, who I tend to be, I want to be realistic, but I tend to be an optimist. Even I think 500 is going to be the struggle this season. And look, that's going to get them in the play-in tournament. I think the East is a lot better this year. But I do think it's ridiculous to not look at this team and say, like, yes, they're young. Yes, they have flaws. Yes, there are still holes that need to be filled, but how are these guys not going to get better? The only way the Magic do not meet expectations this year, whether that's play in tournament, whether that's a win total, the only way the Magic don't meet their over-under this year is if Paolo doesn't take a step toward consistency. If, Markelle Fultz just is what he was last year and doesn't improve in some way. If Jalen Suggs is what he is last year. The only way the Magic don't get better is if they stagnate. And frankly, and I get it, John Hollinger's a national writer. He's not in the building like I am. Frankly, I find it hard to believe this team's going to stagnate. Just being around the group, just being around the team, being around what they're talking about. Again, we'll see how it looks on Tuesday, but the vibes at practice are eager and confident. And honestly, that's all you can ask for at this point of the season and this point of camp and what this team is certainly capable of doing. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find us on Twitter you can find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places to podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. And of course, for practice reports every single day that the Magic practice, check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. I'm posting video from full videos from practice, breaking down every single note from practice. If you want full Orlando Magic information, everything to know about this Magic team, the Orlando Magic Hub is your place to go. Check it out today, patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we'll talk about what to expect from the preseason as the Magic get ready to head to New Orleans for their first preseason game. We'll see you after practice on Monday. So until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.